Welcome everybody to the 11th Annual Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, otherwise known as the RTR. I'm Sue Ann Carlson, and I'm the Executive Director of Homes on Wheels Alliance, otherwise known as HOWA. That's our acronym, HOWA. And HOWA is the organization presenting the RTRs. Today, our topic is minimalism, and I'm very happy to introduce you to Casey. Casey is with Cheap RV Living. She works with Bob Wells, and she focuses on the creative side and the management of the channel. Casey is also a key volunteer for this committee. She brought with her the expertise on doing the technologies that allow us to bring this live to YouTube. And furthermore, she is a huge reason why Homes on Wheels Alliance is a success. Her involvement in 2018 and 19 was indispensable. And then finally, I consider Casey a good friend. Casey joins us today from Arizona. She's been on the road for about 4 years at this current time. She lives out of a car, and you can find the website that she works on, Cheap RV Living. The link to that, as well as the YouTube channel, is down below in the description. So go and visit that at your leisure. Casey, please take us into the minimalism world.
Thank you so much, Sue Ann. That was such a kind and warm welcome. I appreciate it. So I'm so happy to be here today, and I'm also honored, by the way, to call this entire team friends. They've just worked so hard, so lots of kudos to the team for the 2021 RTRs. So I work for Cheap RV Living, as Sue Ann mentioned, and I'm kind of the behind the scenes person. And minimalism is a subject I am really passionate about, and so I'm very happy to share some of my knowledge with you today. As Sue Ann mentioned, I've been on the road full time for about 4 years. I started out in a cargo van, and now I'm in a small car. And so I've been living in a car for about the last 8 months. And so I hope that you find my experience helpful for your particular situation, no matter what you're living in. And first, I'd like to talk about some of the reasons or philosophy for minimalism. And then I'm going to be giving you my best tips for living a minimalistic lifestyle, whether you're in a car, van, RV, or a house. And then we'll have about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the seminar for me to answer some of your questions. And I'll also be using different types of media in my PowerPoint today. So I have to do some adjusting on the fly. So thanks in advance for your patience. And so with that, I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. Okay. So hopefully you can all see a quote right now. And that quote says, "The secret of happiness, you see, is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less," from Socrates. And okay, so with that, what is minimalism? Minimalism is owning fewer possessions, and minimalism is intentionally living with only the things that you really need, those things that support your life and your purpose. By removing the distraction of excess possessions, we can focus more on the things that matter most. Obviously, there's the benefit of having less clutter in our physical space and the financial benefit of spending less money on things we don't really need, but there's also the practical reasons in our current economic situation. And I'm just going to start a timer for myself so I don't run over time. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about some reasons for minimalism. And with the recent downturn in the economy, many people are losing their homes, or they're having a hard time paying rent, or finding themselves suddenly homeless. One of the most important reasons, I think, for becoming more of a minimalist is adaptability. It's more important now than ever for people who are living under this type of stress to be able to live in any type of vehicle, because for many people, they can only afford whatever vehicle they already have. And so one of the best assets you can have in uncertain times is being as flexible as possible to the situation. By being more of a minimalist, it helps you to be more adaptable to whatever comes your way. And I'm just coordinating here a little bit with my slides. Okay. So for me, I need to come from like an organized space, but also a mostly empty space around me that provides a clean slate from which I live and work and organize my thoughts. So if I know that everything has a place and sort of an order in my car, I can think more clearly and freely. So that's my fridge and my solar right there. And so these are just a few examples of how I've organized my car. But many people experience anxiety, OCD, or even panic attacks in stressful situations. So having a clean, organized space around you can be very calming and helpful. So if you're living in a small space from which you live and work, it really helps to keep the clutter down. So owning less means there's more that you can give to others to help them, and there's less to take care of. I don't have as much anxiety about my things or what I own because I know a lot of it is easily replaceable. Even my car, actually, which I bought for very cheap, for $2,500, it's replaceable without too much financial hardship. So that's really helpful to me. And next, I'd like to talk about the American dream. So we've all had the American dream in our minds since we were kids. And the American dream, it's helpful to look at where those values came from in terms of your present values right now. Are they still working for you? Are they relevant to your situation? For example, having a house and new vehicles and a mortgage. Did those values of the American dream come from your parents or perhaps the media while you were growing up? Were those fears around scarcity and security sort of handed down to you? If you're here on the HOWA channel or on Bob's channel, you might be thinking about owning less. Or maybe you just feel like you want to be free from all the stuff and the responsibilities and just get out from under so many financial obligations and live a more simple lifestyle. So we all know there's no guarantees in life, and the best thing you can do, like I said, is have money in the bank and not have debt. But now we have to take care of all those things. Let me just adjust this frame a little bit. And we have to put them in a garage, and we have to have security systems, and now we have to lock the doors, and we have to have privacy fences, because now we have to protect all of our stuff. And in the process of accumulating things for security, we tend to get deeper in debt, and we tend to live paycheck to paycheck, which in the end, it defeats the purpose of buying those things if the goal was security, because there is no security in having debt. And so ultimately, we may find that taking care of all these things is exhausting, it's time consuming, and often it can be financially overbearing and burdensome. So I've also found in many areas of my life that I feel more inclined to give to those in need if I'm feeling secure financially. So it gives me that freedom and that leeway to decide what to do with my money by not being obligated to pay for things that I don't really need. So in terms of downsizing or even saving money on gas or on clothes or Amazon, because you're not buying as many things, you can change from survival mode to thriving, and it allows you to give more where perhaps you thought you needed that money for bills or expenses. So my last reason, and forgive me for the off-center framing, of trying to coordinate that. But anyway, in terms of an emergency fund, it's probably my number one reason for being a minimalist is building that emergency fund. It's one of the most important things you can do. And I know you guys have all heard Bob talk about that. So just wanting to be prepared for being on the road. And so when you have less bills and expenses, you can add to that fund quicker, of course. You might be spending less on gas, less on food, clothing, things like that, so you can contribute more to your emergency fund. And in turn, it contributes more to your sense of peace and security overall. And it gives you the peace of mind to know that if anything happens, you'll be okay and you can rebuild if you have to, and you're not living on the edge, like if something happens or your car breaks down, or maybe your YouTube channel isn't doing as good that month as you thought it would. But in this way, like even if you need mechanical work or whatever the problem is, you've got an emergency fund to lean on. So that's very important. And this is a quote that I really love. Nature is pleased with simplicity, and nature is no dummy. And that is for sure. So now that we've talked about some of the reasons for minimalism, I'd like to take you into my top 20 steps for becoming more of a minimalist, no matter what you live in. And so I just want to be clear that we're really talking about, whether you're in a house right now and you're thinking about being a nomad, or maybe you live in a Honda Fit and it's just too crowded in there. So from one end to the other, anyone can be more of a minimalist. So the first step is to have negative space in your vehicle or home. And I call this vehicle feng shui. The goal of feng shui is to create harmony and balance between an individual and their environment. So nature doesn't look or feel cluttered. And so if you're living in a cluttered space, it makes it more difficult to have clear thoughts, to create that balance around you. It's very helpful, and it's better when you have negative or empty space. It's equally as important, I think, as thinking about what you're going to put in the vehicle. So let that be sort of a deciding factor when you're deciding what vehicle to choose. And apply the rule of live beneath your means in terms of space. So depending on what you might be living in, thinking one size smaller can be very helpful. So if you're in a house, you might think like an RVer. And if you're in an RV, you might think more like a van life person. If you're in a van, you might think more like a car person. And if you're in a car, you might think more like a backpacker. Just like the saying goes about living beneath your means financially, you can live beneath your means in terms of space by always owning less than what you can fit in your current vehicle. In this way, you have less in the vehicle than what you have space for. You have more empty or negative space, and that just feels better overall. This is a video that Bob put out. It's this guy, Tommy, and Tommy created a van space in his home. So he really learned how it would all fit before he made his jump to van life. So I highly recommend this video. And holding this, resisting the urge to shop for that dopamine high. Sometimes we shop on Amazon. Well, what we're actually doing is we're getting a rush of the hormone dopamine. Retail therapy, which is a modern cliche, is actually backed by scientific evidence. The neurotransmitter dopamine surges when you consider buying something new or anticipating a reward. You create a type of addiction. So you can still get that feeling of shopping, but you can buy smaller items, you can buy less items when you feel the need to shop. So you can still get the enjoyment from shopping, but you're just taking it down a notch. And I wanted to talk about sentimental items. And I know that this is a pretty sensitive subject for a lot of people. So I want to approach it that way, that, no one can possibly know how it feels for you personally to lose a loved one. But it was something that, or not but something that can be helpful to reassure yourself is that the person is not in the objects. The person is inside you. The person is in your dreams. The person is in your memories and the conversations that you share with other people. And one thing that might be helpful is to ask your loved one to send a hello from heaven. And sometimes those hellos can come in the form of dragonflies, hummingbirds, butterflies, or maybe even a repeated number that you see on license plates or every time you look at the clock. Another suggestion is to maybe have some kind of personal ceremony where you take that item that helps you to feel more connected with that person, but you have like a memorial service, like out in nature, and maybe bury that mug or item, whatever it is that you might feel guilty about not keeping, and maybe write your feelings down about missing that person and loving them, and place that note in there with the object. So find practical ways, to bring small items with you, but if you can't bring everything, just find other ways to honor that person that you love and keep those memories alive without actually holding on to the physical item. So I'm going to just adjust this framework just a little bit here. Thanks for your patience with that. Okay, so really evaluate if you need that storage unit. So getting rid of a storage unit is tough, but rewarding both financially and with more freedom. So you can begin to have garage sales or give those items away. At first, I did have a storage unit, and I lived in Alaska for 12 years. So, or no, 13, I don't know, a bunch of years. So anyway, I was no longer living in really cold conditions, but my God, did I have the gear for it. And it was so expensive. I had my extra tough boots, I had my parkas and down mittens, everything you can think of. And every single item I felt cost me like $200 to $400 for all of that. But after 6 months, I just hadn't touched a thing. And I just realized I'm going to live in the desert. I'm going to move to warm climates. So just learn how to let go. It's like a constant process of letting go. You can take pictures. I had oil paintings that I loved, and I miss them a little bit. I really do. But you can take pictures of them and you can put it on your laptop. And then once you're sure about this lifestyle change, you can take the steps to free yourself of that financial burden of your storage unit, especially if you've not needed those things. I would say for like 6 months or more, that's kind of a good sign. If you haven't needed them for 6 months, then you're probably okay to live without them. I'd like to share another quote with you. And this is, there are two ways to be rich. One is by acquiring much, and the other is by desiring little. So that is a really, really helpful quote. And downsizing in terms of what vehicle you drive. Now, not everyone wants to downsize in terms of what vehicle you drive, and many of you, probably won't. But if you do, I think the number one thing to look for is reliability. So that's really what I looked for with my car. And I have a Toyota, and I feel like for me, that was one of my favorite brands for reliability. But of course, safety is incredibly important. And, you always want to put safety first. And this is a website called Fuely. And on Fuely, everybody enters their miles per gallon for their make, model, year. And so it's just like this huge database. And when I was looking for a car, often I'd go there and just look up any year, any make, any model, and you'd have a ton of data in there. And so it gives you a graph chart, and it's really excellent. Another thing that's really helpful when deciding what car to get, if you want to maybe downsize into another vehicle, is to go to carcomplaints.com. On carcomplaints.com, it is so all-encompassing. It is amazing. They have every type of vehicle, make, model, year, and then this is small, so you might not be able to see it, but for whatever vehicle it is, they list it by year, and here's the graph of what years had more complaints than others, then you can click on each graph and it will show you, it will just list out how many complaints were filed for every type of thing. And it also has recalls on there and lots of other helpful information, crash tests, and then it will list the top 3 problems that that car and that year had, or for that vehicle overall. And then another really important thing is ground clearance. So this picture on the bottom right is just showing you that, you know, for me, kind of after the fact, I figured out how important ground clearance was to me. So that can be a significant deciding factor for you and something to think about. And also, you might want to think about the configuration that you want, because, you know, this is a center, what I would call like a center console. And I purposely chose a vehicle. This is my vehicle with the dog. And I have the water and food here. So I didn't want a large center console. I wanted to be able to build my bed, oopsie, like right next to that center area. And I had taken the front seat out because it's a very small car. So that's just something else to maybe keep in mind and think about if you're downsizing into a smaller car. And this is something that I talked about in my previous class that I did for HOWA. I did how to organize a micro space. And basically, if you want to make a small car into a big car, of course, you could add universal bars. These are called universal bars, or a roof rack, or a toolie box on top, and give you that added storage. This allows for more space inside your car. It creates a place for coolant, oil, large bedding, or camping items, you know, maybe your traction pads, your shovel, or any other items that are used for getting you out of getting stuck. And it's also easier for cleaning out your car, and it gives you a place for those garage type items or those bulky bedding items, like I said. They can be stored even during the day in this space. And so it's also a place to lock up these items when your car goes into the mechanic. And here's an example of some hitch storage, of a hitch storage on the back of the car. So if you're going to do hitch storage, you can, you know, get these large locking boxes. Tractor Supply has such a huge selection. I found for me, I really wanted to go into Tractor Supply. I wanted to look around and, you know, take a look at everything they had before I decided whether or not I was going to put a box on my car. So it just gives you a better idea and to see what type of locking boxes exist. If you're going to go for this tray in the back of your car to help carry items like what we just talked about, I would highly recommend getting a rise. This is called a hitch with a rise, and usually it's about 6 inches, 6 to 7 inches. And in this car, this looks like it's a Honda Fit. There's no rise on this. One of the most important things when you're boondocking and you're on these really rough roads and you're going up and down through washes and stuff like that, what'll happen is the back of the car is always the place where it's going to hit. So that's going to be on, if you get a sedan, your trunk will likely hit there. If you have one of these, it will hit unless you put a rise on it. I've seen people put a rise even up to like 10 inches. So that is something really important that I do highly recommend. So the next is talking about staying warm. And I include this in the topic of minimalism because I want to help show you to think outside the box. Like, you don't have to have an Olympian heater or a buddy heater. If you're in a very small space, you wouldn't know this unless you sort of tried it out, but body heat will actually heat your car up really well. Like if you have you and a pet, you're going to have a lot of body heat in that vehicle. Also, just rolling up the windows, I find if I roll the windows all the way up, you know, I don't have a source of heat inside, so it's safe for me to roll the windows up. I have other areas where I have incoming air. But anyway, that really helps hold the heat in. Of course, Reflectix on the windows. And then I have glued dark black fabric on the outside of my Reflectix. I highly recommend that for anyone, just for stealth factor, because I've been in some situations where I could have gotten knocked on, but because I had the black on the outside of my Reflectix, it really saved the day. So another thing that you can do, let me just switch over here, is you can, whoopsie. Okay, so you can also use warm down bags. And in this case, I have 2 hike and bike down bags. They're 15 degree, but synthetic might be better for you, whatever you feel is best for you. I have wool socks, and like alpaca wool socks, and I have down booties. So I really have some items that completely keep me too warm. And for my dog too, she just gets too warm in the down bags and things like that. So think about, do you really need a heater? Can you drive to warmer areas in the winter? You know, can you go to lower elevations? And how uncomfortable are you willing to be? That is the bottom line. The more comfort, I got this. The more comfort, the less freedom. The less comfort, the more freedom. So we've heard Bob say that maybe in the past. And then I'd like to talk about staying cool. So this was really surprising to me. At the 2020 RTR, I went to the open house and I met a person. If you're watching, thank you so much. It was a woman who had lived in her Honda Fit for 3 years, and I couldn't wrap my mind around that she didn't have a ceiling fan, she didn't have a hole in her roof, and I couldn't imagine how she stayed cool. Well, she told me all she needed was these rechargeable fans. So here you can see I keep a rechargeable fan over the passenger window, and I have one in the back. I have actually 3 going right now. And then this is a Chill Pal. And I highly recommend, if you have a dog, big or small, you can cut the back of the Chill Pal, and you dip it in water, squeeze it out, and then you lay it over your pet, and it stays cooler longer due to the type of fabric that it is. And it will just like instantly cool my pet down. She stops panting within 5 minutes and she goes to sleep. So it must be something that's very soothing for her. So again, just evaluate how uncomfortable you're going to be and still be okay. I mean, sometimes I don't stay as warm as my friends do with heaters, but I still prefer being in a smaller space because, you know, for many reasons. So I'm willing to give up some of those comforts. And other ways to keep the car nice and cool, and this has worked very well for me in a car, is that I have these lightweight aluminum window shades. These are made of 4 layers of fabric. It's aluminum, like black fabric, a fire retardant, and something else. Anyway, I have 2 of those. I can wrap them completely around my vehicle. I can shade my entire vehicle. And then I also have these, I don't even know what they're called, like rain protector things. And I'll just show you from the inside. So I can always have my windows open almost 2 inches all the way around, and no one can even see from the outside that the window is open at all. So that is really handy to have these things. And that way, no matter what the weather is outside, you always have your windows open. So let's see if I can catch up here on my... Okay, there we go. Okay, great. So any half-awake materialist well knows that which you hold holds you. Tom Robbins. So he knew that even back in 1936. And I'd like to talk about solar. And of course, I can't go too far down this rabbit hole, but I can just tell you how you can do this minimally. Of course, many people are using the Jackery or a Goal Zero. These are real small solar panels, and you can charge a portable rechargeable battery. I do have one of these. It plugs into my car lighter. I can charge 4 items at once while I'm driving. And then another thing that I have a regular solar system, which I'll show you in a minute, but I always keep a 300 watt Best Tech inverter in my car, and that I always have my XM radio plugged into it. And actually that's because when I turn my car off, no matter where I'm at, I like to still be able to listen to XM. So that is directly plugged into my house battery, this Best Tech inverter. And also it's just super handy to have as a backup for any system. Lots of times it saved me. If anything goes down, I just start my car, plug it in, and I'm good to go. Of course, this is a relay isolator, which maybe some of you have seen or not seen. What a relay isolator does is it helps to charge your car while you're driving from the alternator to your house battery. So they make relay isolators also specifically for lithium, and they have parameters where they will cut off and they won't wear your alternator down. And so this is a way to jump your vehicle if you need to. And this is in place of these large, bulky jumper cables. So you can jump your car. Mine specifically, the brand is called Gulu. And there's lots of brands of these out there. Super handy. I would definitely carry one of those with you. Even as a minimalist, there's some things that are just really important that are going to save you space, and they're really going to save you in case you get stuck. So in terms of safety and just minimal comfort even, you know, there's some things that I put down in the Amazon links for this video. This is my solar system, and I have a 600 watt inverter. If you're running a YouTube channel, or if you're doing a lot of electronic work, or you're a digital nomad, I would not go smaller than a 600 watt inverter. I had a 300 and I found that was just too small for me as my main inverter. This is a Victron charge controller, and then I have like my little power source thing there. And I run LED lights across the top, and this is the light switch there. Another thing you can do is use rechargeable lights. So rechargeable lights are just super handy. You can find some that can last a long time. And then Bob also has videos out on that and lots of reviews. The next thing I'm going to talk about is vehicle gear. And let me just adjust this a little bit. So what can you live without? So for me, I can live without the leveling blocks. I can live without a barbecue. But think about what you can live without. Can you live with a smaller camp chair? Can you live with a sleeping bag that compresses down very small? Can you live maybe with lighter, smaller covers for your windshield? And other things that you can do is that you can consolidate and organize your tools into smaller compression, or not compression, but smaller different types of organizing bags like you see here. And like I said, my Gulu car jumper, that's really important to me. It's very small, and so it packs away very easily. And so for traction pads, I have very thin traction pads. I have one set, and they're able to fit across beneath my floor crossways. I only have a 4-foot wide car, but I can still fit traction pads in there. So I think about anybody can. And step number 12 is don't be afraid to let go of expensive items that you own or might have just bought. Let your currency in your thinking go from how much did it cost, which is what we all thought, living in a house. But then for me, it changed to how much space does it take up? So I had the expensive blender and lots of other expensive things, but I gave them to people because I just, every time that happens to me, you know, like maybe the experiment didn't work out like you thought it would. Maybe the vinyl cover was just too big and bulky. Maybe you find out you can live without a heater in your vehicle, or you can travel to warmer climates, or you don't actually need a fridge. Maybe you find out you can get by without a fridge. So let go of those preconceived ideas around things that you thought you needed. And as I mentioned earlier, maybe think more like a backpacker.
Excuse me, Casey. I
Yeah.
need to interrupt you and let our participants know that now is the time to text in your questions on the live chat on the YouTube channel. And if the chat box does not come up for you, please refresh your screen. And you do that if you're on a PC type machine, a Windows machine, typically on the upper left-hand corner of your browser. It's a round circle with an arrow. And if you're on an Apple Mac kind of machine, it's typically in the address bar, a round circle on the right side. Thank you for letting me interrupt, Casey, and take whatever more time you need.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me just resume my timer. So I've talked for about 30 minutes so far. So if you guys don't mind, I'll just go for another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll get to all your questions. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions. So, this is just an example. I used to have dog toys like this, and now I found out she doesn't even use any of them, my dog, except for 2. So I've got 2 toys and 1 bone, and that's all she uses anyway. So you might try that, seeing what your dog really loves. We all have this mess of USB cords in every vehicle and every house. So you can buy these little organizer packs that can help minimize and organize and just throw out all the doubles that you have. And then this slide is just, I found, I accidentally sort of came across some backpacking YouTube channels, and they were outside of my realm of van life and car life and all that. But they were super handy in terms of changing my mindset and learning what items from backpacking that I could maybe use in my own van or car. So you can learn from their minimalist mindset. And also you can learn about some great items that they might use. You can use outdoors for a stove that are light, that are easy to pack away. And this was my setup for a long time. I don't cook now, but I used to cook. And so I used to use this real small little stove. And I used to put it in a little wood burning stove for backpackers. And so this quote, I love this quote, and it's so powerful, but it kind of bowls you over. You're like, wow, it's a check. It really checks you. Real happiness is cheap enough, yet how dearly we pay for its counterfeit. And that couldn't be more true in today, but this quote was written in 1771. I just love that quote. We certainly do pay for its counterfeit. So the next thing is just finding a setup that you like with plastic drawers. And so whether you're in a large vehicle or a small one, it can be moved easily if you change vehicles. And it's just easy to put it in another car or van. If unexpected things come up, repairs, you're more flexible. Like I said, you're more adaptable that way. And it leads to just more freedom and less stress. This is my setup, but find a setup that you really like with plastic containers. I found that having too many large containers or drawers actually made it harder for me to move around in my vehicle. So I tried bigger drawers, but they pulled out too far. So try vertically going up, maybe with some baskets that can stack inside each other and go up vertically. And then, here's another type of container that you might want to consider. So once I got into a car, I kind of traded like furniture and large containers more for these little packing cubes. And all of my tools now are in a see-through plastic bag like this, and some of my clothes and other items. And this is just showing you, you might need like different types of, like these are some fabric boxes or some packing cubes, or maybe you don't want any kind of container and just kind of fit your shoes in anywhere you go. And using space unconventionally. So I have, it's hard to see, but this is a back window in my car, and I have my down slippers in here and some plastic bags in the other one. And I took this out, but I used to have this little shelf for my fridge, and then I fit these containers in underneath it. But I'll show you at the end my little windows when I maximize my screen. And this is just, try to cut down on doubling with shoes, with t-shirts, with fans, with any of that. Try to cut down on toiletries, going from the toiletries you had in the house that were sprawled all over the bathroom counter. You know, now they have these nice little bags that you can pack your toiletries in, so that's really great. And, you know, it's always a trade-off. Anytime you're carrying around a whole bunch of crap, it's just like, what freedom are you giving up right now? Because anytime you're carrying around just too much stuff with you, it's really encroaching a little bit on your freedom. So you want to kind of constantly be letting go, constantly be going through your items, clearing them out. And I do that every couple of weeks. And lastly are some collapsible items. You might think about collapsible bowls, especially for your pets. Having, like I said, sleeping bags that pack down real small. I have both of these items for a desk, one that I can sit and just have my legs straight out under, the other one that I sit up cross-legged at, which is these great little desks that are made with foldable legs. They angle and everything, so I highly recommend them if you work online or spend any amount of time online. And finally, you do you. So this is my closing thought for you, is that everyone's need for comfort level is going to be different. So try not to compare yourself to others or how much or how little they own. Just do what feels best for you and your own level of freedom and adaptability that you want, versus thinking that you have to be more like someone you saw on YouTube or someone you saw in camp. So each person, you know, for each person, minimalism has an individual meaning. So going from a huge house to a larger RV really might be downsizing for someone. For someone else, going from an RV to a van or a van to a car might be minimalizing for them. So you just do you. And my last slide of the class is, I wanted to leave you with something meaningful. So our souls are not hungry for fame, comfort, wealth, or power. Our souls are hungry for meaning, for the sense that we have figured out how to live so that our lives matter. And I know if you're on the HOWA channel and you're on Bob's channel, you're probably already thinking along these lines. So thank you so much. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to stop my share now.
Thank you, Casey. That was really good. Okay, we're going into the questions now. So this first one is from Trevor, and he asked, how long did it take you to make the transition to being more of a minimalist?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I'm still in that process, and I feel like it's a constant process. So the major downsize came for me when I could physically see in my van that I was probably only using like a third of it for my stuff. And so that's when I really decided to make the jump. And Sue Ann was a big inspiration.
Hey, Alexa R., how much clothing do you think is necessary?
That's a great question. I'll show you my clothing. Let me see if I can. Oh, sorry, you're probably all seasick. Okay. This is my clothing right here, and this is all of it in 2 baskets. I do have a winter jacket, and I have some shoes underneath, but I think just, you know, a few t-shirts. I have like maybe 7 t-shirts, a few pairs of pants, and I have like 3 pairs of shoes.
Very good. Okay, this one is from Mary Michaels. Can you recommend good ways to stay clean in a small car or minivan?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I use collapsible bowls, and you can get the really large size collapsible bowls, and I have a link to Amazon in the description for this video, and get at least 2 collapsible bowls. And then what I do is, if I'm washing my hair, I fill one up with water and kind of like wet my hair down, and you know, you can scrub up or, cleaning your body, anything. And then I'll pour the water from the one bowl like down into the other bowl. So that's one way to then dispose of the water later, wherever. But so 2 bowls, and then I usually carry a few gallons of water. And I know there's a lot of other great ways to stay clean. I just keep like a ton of washcloths and two big collapsible bowls is my main way.
Very good. Okay, Future Nomad asks, what types of cars are best to live out of? Sedans?
Right. So as we had talked about, and it's so important, when you any time that I hit the back of my car, it comes from having, like, if I have something on the back of my car, that's what's going to be the area to hit. So just think about, when you're going over a bump, that's what's going to hit. So I don't recommend sedans, although I thought heavily about getting a Toyota Camry because they're so reliable and they've got great power and all this great reviews. But, ultimately I decided against it because it has the trunk. So I'd go with a hatchback.
So you're talking about the distance from the rear wheels to the bumper is
right.
The area that it's likely to hit.
Yeah, I feel like that's the most likely to hit. Although I know sedans are cheaper and everything, but there's just so many cars like the Matrix, the Pontiac Vibe. They're pretty cheap online. They're reliable. They're hatchbacks. So you might think about some of those mid-sized hatchback cars.
Good. This person's name is not Bob, and he asked, or maybe she, do you miss me being in a van?
Right. Good question. No, I mean, sometimes I call it like space envy. Like I'll go in like Sue Ann's van or something and I'll be like, man, this is really a lot of space. I would like that. And, I guess I would, but then I'll like go zip into town or, I go to Whole Foods a lot. I drive a lot and I'm like, man, I'm so happy I have a gas economical small car for parking and so many other reasons. So ultimately, I have to say no. You just have to like get out more and hike more and stuff.
Very good. Okay, this is from Gypsy Candy. What size solar panel do you carry? Any solar generator? Great info, Casey.
Thank you. I really want to encourage you guys. You don't need a lot of solar. I have a 150-watt hard panel. It's phenomenal, and that's what I've had for 8 or 9 months on this vehicle. And it has powered a 24-quart fridge, a laptop that takes a lot of power, what else do I run? Well, of course, my XM radio and everything else is like rechargeable. But no, it runs my lights. I have my LED lights plugged in. So anyway, 150-watt panel, a 600-watt inverter, and I have a 100-amp-hour lithium battery.
Very good. Okay, Laura Chase asked, do you think you will always live in a car? Any plans to move to a house?
Great question. Sue Ann, I just want to add on that last question that I do have a relay isolator manager for my lithium battery. So actually, I can't say it all comes from solar. Probably a lot of the recharging comes when I drive. And then any plans to, I'm sorry, can you read that question one more time?
She wants to know, this is Laura,
Yeah.
if you always live in a car and if you have any plans to go live in a house.
Right. No plans to live in a house. Thank you, Laura, for asking. No, I owned a house. I've owned a house somewhere my whole adult life, just up to 4 years ago. And I found that the mortgage, the interest I was paying on the mortgage, and then the need for securing my items, the privacy fence, natural gas heating, it was just like too much. I couldn't deal like on my salary. So I feel more by living in a car that I don't have to just survive.
Very good. Okay, the next question is, do you have any other suggestions for staying cool in a car?
Yeah, I do. So I love that aluminum window shield that I showed you. I've been in the 90s in it, and when you can wrap your whole car and shade all of the windows and it's insulating for keeping it cool, you're really doing well. Like I said, I use the Chill Pal for the dog, and she's fine as soon as I put the Chill Pal on her. I keep well, I'll just tell you everything I can think of. My fans, which I have 3 O-Polar fans, 2 are like 8 inches around, so they're big and they move a lot of air. And I keep them spaced throughout the car. And then I have a smaller O-Polar like this big, and it's really powerful. And that's about it. Just the main thing about if you want to stay cool in a car, you have to stop the heat before it enters the vehicle. And that's the most important point. Putting up sun visor stuff, that's not going to do it because the heat has already entered the car by the time it hits the sun visor inside the windshield. You want to have something outside the vehicle, which is very important, and get some magnets too for helping to hold those on, those big magnets.
Very good. This is from Nomad Life. Do you think you will stay in a small car? And how small is it?
It's very small. It is 4 feet wide, and I have 7 feet total from the glove box to the very rear of the car. So it's real small. I have about 32 inches for sleeping wide and 6 foot 2 inches for me personally to sleep because I'll show you, I have this cord. Okay, so here's my clothes, here's my storage, and I keep all the storage in these plastic containers. Sorry, I know you're all seasick. And then here is my refrigerator. So, yeah, so I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Do you think you will always stay in a small car?
Yes, I will always, well, not too small, actually. So what I found out, and let this be a lesson for all of us, is that I had super low clearance. So I was like, wow, this is great at first because I get 40 miles per gallon. I didn't mind it so much. But now I really want that clearance. So I'm going to probably get something like a SUV to get the clearance. But yeah, I'll always stay in a car.
And what is the reason you want the clearance, Casey?
I find more and more that I want to go further and further back. And so I thought at first, I was like, well, I'm just going to like city stealth it sometimes, and I'm going to park close to town, and I just don't really need it. But then you want to go be with your friends or join your friends on an adventure, and you have to watch every single rock in a real tiny car with I have like 5 inches of clearance. And then one time at a really close call, I'll just keep it short, I was going to pull off at night on a road to sleep. And so it was dark and I couldn't see there was a truck tire there. And my car's so little, I went right over it and it tore the whole cover off the bottom of my car. It was super scary. And then I had to with a knife cut all that stuff off. It was all hanging out all over the place. Anyway, so
That's great, Casey.
What?
I had not yet heard that story.
Yeah, it just happened last week.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What are some pros and cons of a minivan or a van versus a car?
That's great. I love minivans, and I love the space that a minivan can give you. Most minivans are still going to have that 5, maybe 7 inches of clearance, so not a ton of clearance. But when you're comparing a minivan and a car, I guess a car just better gas mileage if you want really high gas mileage, like a Prius or like a Yaris. I think the advantage of a minivan is you have normal human being space. Like for any normal human being, you have enough space to live in. And in a car, it's smaller. You have to be adaptable. You have to be kind of flexible because I'm always sitting cross-legged or kneeling. And so I think those reasons, gas mileage, ease of stealth with a car, and then with a minivan, the benefits are normal human being living space. face.
By the way, that question was from Teresa J. Thank you, Teresa.
Okay, thank you, Teresa.
Okay. Water Trine Muse. Hi, Casey. Great presentation. How do you handle your toileting, bathing, and bathing needs in your small space?
Yeah, I knew that would come up. So we kind of went over washing up, and for me, it's been like a non-issue. You can, if you're boondocking all the time, I would just say you can go outside, you can do cat holes, if you use all the correct methods for that. If not, large collapsible bowls. Sometimes people use a whatever it's called, the thing that you pee in. Yeah, a shiwi, containers like that. You're not going to be able to put a 5-gallon bucket in a car, so that's kind of out. But you might be able to do like a coffee can or a 2-gallon bucket or something like that. Everyone has to find what's right for them, and so yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
Thank you. Dan Noodle, what websites can you list items that you want to get rid of?
So Craigslist is great, Facebook Marketplace, and I really want to encourage people, if you're selling your house, I sold my house in 4 days on Facebook Marketplace. Granted, it was a desirable area, but Facebook Marketplace is just great. And then I would go for whatever town you're in. Let's say you're in Phoenix, search for Phoenix buy sell, the words buy sell, and then click on groups, and it'll give you every single buy sell group in Phoenix, and then you can join like 10 or 15 of them. When you go to sell your items, you can put it on Marketplace, and it will give you the option to add it to those particular buy sell groups. So that's what I always did with everything. And then I also use Craigslist or garage sale.
I'll also put a plug in here for the HOWA marketplace, especially if you have items that are specific to the nomadic lifestyle. That would be a great place for you to list your things.
Right.
That's on Facebook. Facebook for those of you that don't know. Okay, Ann Pasitsky, which wants to know which Gulu do you own?
Oh, Gulu. Let me see if I can reach it. I may be able to reach it for you. Okay, here it is. Jump starter power bank. And this is how it looks in the bag. And this is an 800A jump starter. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one. Bob has one, I think it's on his 10 items for Christmas video. And with his, he has a cigarette plug that you can plug into a 12-volt plug and put into his. So I think his is better. So watch 10 items for Christmas video.
There you go. Thanks so much, Casey, for answering the questions today. And thank you everyone for being here. And Casey, do you have any closing remarks for us?
I just want everyone, just like I said, you do you. My hope for everyone who's watching today is that no matter what you're in, you find what works for you personally and not get caught up in what you think, would be the right way to be a minimalist. There's no right way. That's my bottom line. There's no right way. So you do you. And I really hope that this was beneficial to all the viewers. And thank you, HOWA and the team.
Thanks, Casey. Okay, I just want to remind you before we cut to text chat that our next session is on how to make budgeting fun. And that's tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, right here, same channel, same place. So right now, Casey's going to go over and head to text chat to answer more of your questions and just to kind of talk a little bit. We'll see you over there.